Hi, everyone. So I'm going to approach AI from a different perspective, from product. So I work as a group PM at Hotjar. If you don't know Hotjar, it's a behavior analytics tool that lets you see how users use your website or your product and improves it. So I'm going to touch a bit about how to implement AI for your product if your product is not AI focused or like built on AI. Share my experience with you on how we did it at Hotjar. It was also my personal first experience with AI. And yeah, some tips and tricks to think about before starting. So coming into such a conference, you're probably thinking everyone is launching AI products. There's like a lot of hype out there. And if you're not doing it yet, you're probably feeling a little bit of FOMO. So it's normal, don't worry. Every company had that conversation a couple of months ago, or maybe still has to have it. We had this conversation earlier this year. The product that I manage actually is a qualitative product, but it means that we launch surveys and feedback widgets in the websites, and we ask users, how was your experience? Give us a bit more feedback. And it's a lot of text-based content. So like we actually kind of knew that AI is out there, but we were like really busy implementing our roadmap. And our CEO was like, have you thought about, playing with ChatGPT and, thinking what it can do for your product? So we were like, yeah, that's actually a very fair point. We should stop blindly delivering our roadmap and check it out. And basically checking out also various tools out there in the market. We started seeing AI popping up everywhere. Popular tools like Notion, which is like a notebook on steroids, added the AI capabilities to generate content. Spotify launched a nice feature which was like AI enhancing the playlist that you have. So if you have 4 or 5 songs from a certain artist or from a certain style, with AI, then it would generate additional songs and enhance your list. So there were like really nice use cases of companies that address this quite properly, and that's also like something that we wanted to do. But we also, of course, noticed that some companies got completely wiped out because of AI. So like certain products out there were aiming to automate tasks or make things easier. And with a big launch of AI, they got completely wiped out. So they had to be completely shut down. And some big industries are at stake as well. So for example, I'm not sure if you know about it, but Hollywood artists and screenwriters were on strike for a very long time, because AI can not only replace the script writing itself, but it can also fully replace the actors. So it can just pretty much, using an actor's face, generate a whole movie without the actor being there. So it's pretty disruptive for that industry. And of course, it's, let's say, an industry that everyone loves and cares about. And yeah, it's quite, let's say, threatening. I don't know if you have watched Black Mirror. I know it's a very dystopian series, but there is an episode of AI-generated content on Netflix of a woman's life. So basically, AI is using her face and is playing every day a story from her life. So like, just a small teaser for tonight. Since it's raining, you can watch it. It's a bit dystopian, but it's quite realistic. So, so like before thinking about adding AI in your product, it would be great to identify what's the role of AI on your product. So like, of course, it's hyped and everything, but you need to understand, OK, first of all, is it a threat? Is it an opportunity? Should I completely replace my product and base it on AI, or should I just ignore it? Thinking about it. So like, of course, it can be a threat, but I also like to think of AI as an opportunity, because it let us revolutionize our products completely from scratch, and it can create new products that we didn't even think are possible. Like the Mid-Journey, I don't know if you're aware of it, but it can just generate nice images like this one based on the prompt you give it. So there's all these kind of products that we couldn't imagine are possible before and are now popping out like mushrooms everywhere. So basically, before we start creating a product with AI, we need to make sure that the product is valuable and adds value. So like, we need to avoid the hype. So to avoid the hype, we need to make sure that we solve for a real user problem or need. And ideally, that need has popped out through research. So if we do our jobs well as product people, we do a lot of research with customers, and we basically know a bit what they need, and we know that there's different solutions to solve those needs. So in the Spotify example as shown before, we probably, if we did research, we might know that our users want to discover new songs from the same artist, or that they want to discover similar artists from the ones that they like. So except for the user value, we also need to make sure there is business value. So if I would be a PM at Spotify, I would probably think that I would assume that by discovering more music, we will increase the number of songs and minutes played, which probably also correlates with the goals of the company, which is to retain and engage users and therefore lead to a higher revenue. Because the more engaged and retained users are, most likely they will create premium accounts and it's going to generate more money. So here, this feature has actually managed to achieve this goal pretty well, because by enriching that list and showing you additional songs, you're able to discover more of music and start to play around. So let's see now how we did it at Hotjar, what was our process. So as I mentioned before, we launched this for the qualitative product that we have, which is basically surveys and feedback. So it's surveys that you can either pop up in your website or have them as a link. Basically, it's a lot of qualitative feedback, like I said before. So that was our first, let's say, case. So as good PMs, we want to hope that we are. We started again from user problems. And we had a couple of problems that were quite crucial for us for different reasons. So the first problem was that some users didn't use our tool because they didn't know what questions to ask when writing surveys. So they maybe wanted to get feedback. They didn't have so much experience with creating surveys or with doing research. And they were actually blocked in the beginning of the journey with creating those questions. And of course, we could have built an in-house tool with sample questions and everything, but that would be very labor-intensive. And it always got deprioritized because of the high effort. The second problem was the fact that once you got those survey responses, it was very time-consuming to analyze it. We had some interviews with customers, and basically they were spending like multiple hours with 3 or 4 people to categorize the responses, tag them, analyze them, and we were like, wow, this is a huge opportunity. But we knew that if we want to do this automatically, we have to implement in-house machine learning infrastructure and everything, which would cost a lot of time and money. So basically we said, okay, let's deprioritize this and do something else. But when AI, let's say, started to be hyped, we knew that these are potentially good candidates. And the reason why we thought this, because we knew that, for example, ChatGPT can generate a lot of content. So we definitely knew that it can help us generate questions and survey ideas. And it can also summarize data pretty well. So instead of us building our own in-house thing, we could just use this that was offered to us pretty much for free at a very low cost. So that's the reason basically why we went ahead with it. We chose to go with ChatGPT because it was the most straightforward and easy thing. And the reason also why we wanted to do this is because it allowed not only engineers, but also PMs, designers, and everybody else to work with it and play with the prompt and have this kind of cross-functional way of building it. So for the first problem that we talked about, generating survey ideas, we started playing with the prompt with a very simple way, like, for example, give me some survey ideas, survey question ideas for measuring usability for my website. And then we kept enhancing the prompt more and more by adding more specifics. So for example, later we told it, we also want you to propose a scale to measure that question. So for example, to suggest, is it a text, is it a Likert scale, whatever. We gave it examples, and we even tried asking to return the results in JSON format. So basically, the learning here was that like the more specific you are with the prompt, the more better actually information it returns to you. So then the less work you have to rework the results of the prompt to make sure that it's what you need. For the second problem, which was analysis of data at scale, there were 2 factors that were very important here. The quality of the analysis. We wanted to not have rubbish in, let's say, the results that we get. But we also wanted speed, because the results were going to be displayed on the interface to the users real time. So that meant that we cannot have the user waiting there in front of the screen and just going away. So here's where we faced our first challenge. We just thought that we can just take survey responses and dump them to ChatGPT and get some results. But our legal department had a different opinion. They were like, survey responses are personal data. And we're like, how can a survey response be a personal data? Because at the end, we're asking users, what do you think about our website? How can this be sensitive? But actually, we had no control over what users input in the survey response. So that meant that the user could just put their name and their email or their telephone and expect us to call them back, which we didn't think would happen. So we had to basically do some kind of dummy data work there, or like remove this PII information. And we started playing again with it, and we saw that it was good. It gave us what we want. So basically, afterwards, it was time to make it concrete. So make it, select our MVP. So if you don't know what an MVP is, it stands for minimum viable product. And that means that it's a product that can stand on its own. So it's like a straightforward, let's say, release you can launch to the market. But it's small enough so that you can launch to customers, learn from the feedback, and then iterate on it. So it had to be big enough to give value, but small enough to launch fast, because time was pressuring us. Competitors were starting to launch AI as well, so we were under pressure. So what we chose for is two very simple, straightforward solutions, but that tackled the problems. The first one was generating 5 survey questions based on a user's goal. So the users would say, for example, I want to measure user satisfaction on my website. They would input the goal, and then we generated 5 questions that could match those goals and enhance it in the survey builder. The second solution was that we summarized survey responses with a written report. So that meant that you go to some quotes from users on what they said and some bullet points summary. Again, here we decided to go for this way because it was very simple, but also because we knew that our users actually share the results with their colleagues in this way when they do research. So after we decided on the scope, we had to do the go-to-market. And for this one, we decided to go with a product hunt campaign. So if you don't know the product hunt, it's a platform online where you can actually launch new products. So if you have a startup or some innovative product that you're launching, you can go there, get new users, get visibility for your product. And nowadays, it's also common that bigger companies start to also launch their products on Product Hunt, so that they can get more visibility for it and more awareness and more reach. So we created this campaigner video with marketeers. They were working on it for weeks. There was a lot of back and forth and a hustle. We were upvoted as the 4th product of the day, which was pretty awesome. We saw a very big boost in our metrics on the day of the launch. Of course, we also did some webinars and some other things. But I do have to say that after the campaign, it dropped back to the basic levels of adoption, and I will explain afterwards why that happened. So that's a little bit how we did it. And now I would like to share with you some challenges and considerations when adding AI to your product, so that I can make your life easier. So the first one, again, like as I said, is the legal one. It's the most important one because it's the one that's going to take the longest to resolve, and it can actually block your release date. So every time, because we are integrating with OpenAI, every time you integrate with third party, you always have those considerations on data privacy, storage, etc. As I mentioned before, what you might think is not sensitive data actually could be. So definitely check the assumptions and ensure the legal team is in the loop from the beginning. And yeah, if you need to experiment and you have sensitive data, you can also use dummy data to explore. There's a lot of open data sets out there, and you can play with them and just get your hands dirty. Second one is copyright. Again, when you're generating stuff with AI, maybe you have a blog or anything, who's the owner actually of this data? So if you're going to monetize and exploit, let's say, commercially the information you get from AI, you need to make sure you have appropriate licenses so that you can do it. This is a cat that I generated from Midjourney. I like cats. I'm a crazy cat lady, so. But I have the license for it, so if you want the poster, I can share it with you later. All right, so next topic basically is the adoption curve. It's what I mentioned before with the boost in the metrics that drop down. The AI, even though if it's very hyped, if your product is not based on AI, it still follows the regular technology adoption trend, which basically means that every time you're launching something very innovative, it takes a kind of like curve in the adoption for people to figure it out, start using it, and become mainstream. And what we have there in the middle is what we call the chasm, which is basically the point where if you can break through that, your product becomes well known, and you can manage to have it a bit more adopted by everyone. So yeah, as I said, basically, even if it's hyped, it's still very new and people are still figuring it out. A lot of people don't really trust it. We also saw that our users who used it were like a bit sometimes hesitant, even though the result it gives is pretty good. But keep in mind that just because you're launching it and it's hyped doesn't mean that everyone will start using it. So if you have low adoption, it's perfectly normal. Another learning was the prompt. So also, as I mentioned briefly before, the more specific the prompt is, the better it is. And like you really have to go somehow stupid. Like we told it, like you're a user researcher and you have to write a survey about measuring usability. Like we gave it the whole scenario. And here, as you can see, I'm asking it to summarize some survey responses. On the right side, you have a bunch of text, which is pretty boring and hard to read. And in the left side, it creates a really nice table just by saying that I want the data in a table format. So playing around with it is really important. Another big consideration is that you need to ensure AI fits your strategy. So again, here you need to make sure you have a solid product strategy and know what you want to achieve. And if AI can help you meet those goals, then you can do it. But don't just launch AI if it doesn't help achieve your strategy. Because it actually could counter fire. Like your users could get upset because you're riding the hype, you're doing cool stuff, but you're actually maybe having some bigger problems you need to solve that you're not doing, and then users are like a bit, okay, this company is full of bullshit, you know? It happens sometimes, so keep in mind. Cool, and then last but not least, my advice is to launch early. Don't hesitate to create a landing page, get signups, and just state your value proposition and see what traction you can get. Because the mistake that we did is we thought we have to make our product ready and then launch, but we saw that our competitors started to create those landing pages. We're starting to get traction, and our customers were saying, yeah, but we know that competitor XYZ already has it, and actually they didn't. They just had a landing page, and we were actually the first ones to launch, but we lost this kind of like awareness or capitalizing on the hype because we didn't create a landing page. We were a bit too conservative with doing it. Cool, so that's it from me. I hope it helps you in your AI journey, and I'm open for questions. Thanks.